Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to episode 144 of Sports Management Podcast. Today's guest is Åsa Edlund Jönsson. She's the Secretary General of the Swedish Olympic Committee. Åsa has a long background from journalism and media. She worked for Swedish Television SVT for over 2 decades and the last 6 years as head of sports. Åsa is a true trailblazer. She was the first female head of sport at SVT and also the first woman to commentate men's ice hockey live on Swedish television. In this episode, we spoke about reaching a gender-equal sport coverage, losing the bid for the 2030 Winter Olympics, the Swedish Olympic Committee's stance on individual neutral athletes from Russia and Belarus, sustainability and mega events, and much more. Åsa Edlund Jönsson, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Well, thank you so much.
It's great to have you here. You are the Secretary General of the Swedish Olympic Committee since February of 2023. So can you tell us a little bit about what this role includes?
We made sure that athletes can have a great journey towards the next upcoming Olympics, that they have coaches, that they have nutrition, that they can really do their hard job in a great way and try to make sure that they can deliver on the Olympics. And we're also financed. A large part of our finance is privately funded by a partnership with the business community. So a lot of the job is about finding new partners and try to engage them with the work we do and make sure that we have enough money to spend on the athletes and on our Olympic sport federations that actually owns us.
Interesting. So I know that the financing part, of course, is an important piece and for the athletes to have the right preparations for an event. So what is it that they need mostly, the athletes?
Well, 44% of all the athletes in our program, it's called the Top and Talent program, they would live on almost with financial aid from the state if they didn't get the money from the Swedish Olympic Committee. So we help them with money, but we also help them with coaches. We help coaches with nutrition. We help them with doctors. So they basically can get anything they want from the Swedish Olympic Committee, but it's very based on the individual needs. So we don't just hand out money to a federation saying, you can do whatever you want with the money. So we really tailor-made everything for the individual athletes. So some athletes, they really need the money so they can pay for the rent or a car, so they can travel or so they can go to international competition or go abroad for international training. They need help from our doctors. So it's a variety of things that we offer.
If we look from the Olympic movement side, there's a lot of things happening in the upcoming years. This year is the 100-year anniversary of the Winter Olympics, and we also have the Summer Olympics in Paris. Then it's the Winter Olympics again in Cortina. So I assume you have a lot on your plate right now. So if there is such a thing as a regular day nowadays, what are you focusing on?
I think that's actually the best part with my job, that there isn't a regular day because every day is sort of a new day. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy not having a work life that is so predictable. So there are new challenges every day. But of course, we have a great focus on the Paris Olympics coming this summer and also on the Milano Cortina in 2 years, the Winter Olympics. And last year, we had a big focus on trying to host the Winter Olympics ourselves in 2030. We had a great run, but we failed. So that was a special year to start as a Secretary General. And now this year looks totally different.
Yeah. So let's talk about the 2030 games, because I know that you worked really hard on that. I've heard several interviews. It felt like Sweden had a really, really good opportunity to get these games, and you have done such preparations and presented such a good case, but then in the end fell short. So can you talk us through a little bit the preparatory work and also until the decision?
We saw that there wasn't a host awarded for the 2030 games, and we had a great concept for 2026 when Italy was awarded the games. So the IOC said, if you want to make a run for 2030, you had a great concept for 2026. Start with that and try to sort of modernize it for 2030. So we did that, and I think we had a great vision. We wanted to do the most sustainable games ever. And we had a great sporting concept using existing arenas in Sweden and in Latvia, and using the great organization knowledge that we have locally around different arenas in Sweden. So we plan to use world-class existing arenas and together with the experienced local organizers. And Sweden is known as a skilled host of competition and championships, and we really wanted to build on that and that knowledge and experience in a sort of new event delivery model. So we wanted to contribute to the Olympic movement, showing that a small country as Sweden, together with Latvia, actually could host the Winter Olympics and the Paralympics in a modern way and give a legacy for the future. Because we have challenges in the world with the climate. And you have the Alps, the snow is melting, and looking ahead into the future, it will not be too many countries in the world that can host the Winter Olympics. So we thought that this was a great opportunity for Sweden, of course, but also a great opportunity for the IOC to show that the small country could do this. Also, if I can continue, we felt we had a great support from the Swedish people this time around. I mean, Sweden have tried over and over to host the Winter Olympics and Paralympics and failed. And sometimes we've been criticized for not having the public support. But this time around, we felt we had the support. 7 out of 10 Swedes said that they wanted Sweden to host the games if the games were cost effective, if they were sustainable, and if they were democratic. And we could show them that they will be cost effective because we will use existing arenas. We will not build new arenas. We will use the great knowledge we have around the organization for sports and, of course, be sustainable. So we thought we had a great support from the Swedish people. The business community really wanted to do this, and also support from politicians on all levels, national, regional, and local. So we thought really we had a great case this time around.
I understand. But one of the reasons that IOC gave for why they didn't award it to Sweden was lack of government support. Is that something that you felt that you didn't get enough support from the Swedish government?
Well, we had secured everything that the IOC asked for the second phase of the process. So everything that the IOC had asked for, we had done and delivered. And they asked for guarantees to be delivered by the end of March. And we would have delivered those guarantees from all political levels by the end of March. But suddenly they decide to sort of award the games to France for 2030 earlier than by the end of March. So that really caught us by surprise, because they said something with the guarantees and then they suddenly sort of changed the rules, saying, something different. So we were very surprised by that, I must say. So in their evaluation, we were evaluated with a great sort of technical concept, and France was evaluated with the highest political support. And I think, France, they are hosting the Paris Games this summer. It will be great games, and they have a relationship with the IOC, and I think they sort of build on that for 2030. And for Sweden, we had to establish a new relationship with the IOC and sort of showing the political support from another starting point compared to France. So I think, in a way, I think it was easier to award the games to France, or it's not awarded, but have them move on in the process. And also looking back, since Lillehammer in Norway in 1994, no small country has been awarded the Winter Olympics or Paralympics. The games have been awarded to the US, China, Russia, France, Italy, Canada. Only big countries have been awarded the games. And I think, there's a lot at stake. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the world, the Winter Olympics. So, of course, the IOC want to be secure that a country can handle it. But I think it's sad in a way because we could have shown the world that a small country can do this, and it would have been an important legacy for the future.
Yeah, and as you said, it's been 30 years since it's been in a small country, and you had the support and a good game plan. So I understand the frustration or the disappointment. I know that you're also a very avid advocate for sustainability in general, and you said that you wanted to bring the most sustainable event. Now it will be awarded to France. They will have to build new ice rink in summer cities and so forth. So how do you look at it? Is it possible to have a sustainable event in France?
Well, sustainability comes in three pillars: people, planet, and profit. So, I mean, I'm sure that France can make sustainable games when it comes to social sustainability, for instance. They will have the first gender equal Summer Olympics ever this summer in Paris. So, in that sense, they are already sustainable on the social pillar. But when it comes to environmental, that's a challenge. And if they need to build 2 new ice rinks in the summer city Nice, I think that's not how we look at sustainability, because building arenas, that really sort of puts pressure on the environmental side of the event. So since the IC had a major focus on sustainability, and we are really happy that they have a major focus on sustainability, we were surprised that they didn't choose a country which has all the arenas already. But, we'll see what happens.
For sure. Focusing on the Summer Olympics in Paris coming up, Sweden has a goal of winning 20 medals, I think I read. Is that correct?
We have an objective for the future for 26 and 28. So that is our sort of a long-term objective of ours, to have a capacity of competing for 20 medals. So we haven't set a clear target for the Summer Olympics yet in Paris. So we'll see what happens. There's still qualifications going on around the world. So we really don't know what our group of athletes will look like when we go into Paris. So it will take a few more months before we decide actually the target for Paris.
I see. And you will be going as a Swedish representative to these games. So what is your role going to be at Paris 2024?
Well, like I said, the Swedish Olympic Committee is financed by partnership with the business community. So, of course, we will be joined by many of our partners on site in Paris. So I will take care of the guests. We also have guests from the Olympic Swedish federations coming. So we will take care of them as well. Also try to contribute in making speeches, helping out in different areas. But also, of course, I want to go and see some sports and also help out our team on site, because they do tremendous work during the Olympics. They really have their sleeves rolled up, and they are there to give the athletes the best possible way on trying to perform on the field or in the arena. So, of course, being a good support for my team on site is important.
Of course. IOC made the decision to allow individual neutral athletes from Russia and Belarus to compete under a neutral flag, which have been talked about quite a lot. So what is the Swedish Olympic Committee's stand on this?
Well, the Swedish Olympic Committee and our Nordic colleagues, we have clearly stated our position not to open up international competition for Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials at this time. And we have been clear on that from the very beginning of the war, and we are still clear on that. But we have also seen that the participation of individual neutral athletes with Russian and Belarusian passports in international competition is sort of widely accepted by a big athlete community, and also a majority, from my understanding of the National Olympic Committees, think we should allow individual neutral athletes from Russia and Belarus. And they think that you shouldn't be discriminated based on your passport. So the Nordics, the Baltic states, Ukraine, Poland, I think we're sort of a minority when it comes to our clear statement on this.
I see that point that someone shouldn't be punished for that, but also you need to consider the other side where the Ukrainian athletes need to compete against these athletes and how that impacts them and so forth. So I think it's of course a very big question.
Yes, and we have tried to give our support to Ukrainian athletes and the Ukrainian National Olympic Committee ever since the war started, of course, because they need all the support they can have. We've seen, witnesses of arenas being bombed, and they have difficulties training to become an Olympian. So, of course, we try to give our best support to Ukraine at this very tough time.
That's great to hear. So if we look ahead a little bit, now we talked 2024 is in Paris, 26 is in Milano Cortina, 30 is in France, 34 is in US, I think.
Yes, and you have 28 in Los Angeles.
And 28 in Los Angeles as well. So now after the candidacy for 2030, is Sweden aiming for another game in the future?
We are actually right now doing evaluation of the whole process, and that evaluation will be presented at our annual meeting in April. Since the games will be awarded to these countries in the future, and Switzerland have sort of a first pick on 2038. The next available Winter Olympics seems to be 2042, and I think that is a long way into the future, and I will probably not be around working with the 2042 games. So I'm not so sure that we will put too much effort into trying to host the Winter Olympics and Paralympics in the near future. But I mean, I'm not going to rule it out. So, but right now it feels like it's very much in the distance.
So is it only Winter Olympics that is of interest for Sweden? A Summer Olympics is not something to consider?
The Summer Olympics is way too big. You can't even compare the Winter Olympics with the Summer Olympics. But we have other Olympic Games within the International Olympic family. So we have the Youth Olympic Games. I just visited the Winter Olympic Games in South Korea for the younger ones, 15 to 18 years old. So, of course, Youth Summer Olympic Games, that would work in Sweden, I would say, but not the big old Summer Olympics. That's too big.
I understand. Let's dig into your career a little bit. You have been at SVT, Swedish Television, for over 2 decades in different roles. How did you end up there in the first place?
Well, when I grew up at a very young age, I knew I wanted to become a journalist. And I had the opportunity to start working as a freelance sport journalist for the local newspaper when I was still in sort of high school gymnasium. And that led me to a career in journalism. So I got an education in Stockholm, being a print and television reporter. And after that, I worked the summer for the local newspaper again. And I heard that new sport channel was starting in Sweden. Super Sport, a South African company, was coming to Sweden. So I applied for a job there, got the job, and Super Sport turned into Canal Plus, later Seymour. So I was there from 95 to 99 when I joined SVT. So I've been working with sports almost all the time as a reporter, commentator, anchor, project manager, had online media. But I had a few years working at the news department as well as the Swedish television, working with the Swedish election and the European election. So I had a chance to see something else besides sports as well.
So you have done sports and politics. I guess that comes in handy now in your current role.
Yeah, actually it does. Being a secretary general, there are a lot of work with the political side. So it's actually good that I have done a few years working with that.
You have also done a lot of firsts. You were the first woman to commentate men's ice hockey in year 2000. So that was your second year in SVT.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I think it was, one of those annual meeting you have with your boss, looking ahead, what you want to do ahead. And I said, I've been covering ice hockey for all my life. I grew up in Örnsköldsvik. That's a super famous hockey town in Sweden, and a hockey town which has really contributed to the NHL with a lot of players. So I sort of have hockey in my blood. So I thought, I covered the NHL, I've covered the Swedish Elite League as a reporter, as an anchor, and what was left as an editor. So the next step was sort of being a commentator. So I raised my hand and said, I would like to try as a commentator on ice hockey. And he said, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's do this. But I mean, it was headlines before I even started as a commentator. It was headlines in the newspaper saying, can she do this? And they called famous people asking, can Åsa do this? Can she deliver? What will it be like? So that was, it was a big thing back in the days. And today, I mean, almost 25 years later, I mean, it's not a big thing if a woman is a commentator. But 25 years ago, that was huge. I didn't think of it in the same way, but looking from the outside, people thought it was huge.
Did you feel there was an extra pressure since you were the first to be able to deliver when people had their doubts?
Well, people might have their doubts, but there were a lot of people cheering for me at the same time. And I thought I had a solid ground to stand on. I sort of knew my hockey. I knew the hockey players, so I knew the game of hockey, and I had a great expert commentator in Kurt Lundmark, who used to be head coach for the Swedish national team, and he had so much experience. So I wasn't there on my own. I had a really, really great support from him. So I thought I was standing on a solid ground. Of course, it was nervous, and a lot of things happened because I did the commentary from Russia, and the audio transmission broke down. So we had to use our cell phones, talking from cell phones. And we were standing in a big Russian crowd, just screaming. So we couldn't barely hear each other. And, the audience, the TV audience, they don't know about this. I mean, they just assume that things are in perfectly order from where you do your commentary. So there were a lot of challenges around this, but that was good. Well, it was great fun, and I did it for 5 years or something, and then I became a project manager and sort of left being a reporter anchor behind. But then I got an opportunity right before I left SVT. One of our commentators got sick, and I was the only person around who could actually be a commentator. So I jumped in and started commentating a hockey game for the Swedish TV puck, a youth tournament. And I got stuck in that commentating booth for 4 days. So that was sort of fun doing it again after all these years. And then I got phone calls of people saying, you should get back there. You can do this. And I said, no, I think that time is over. But it was great fun doing it again as an older person.
I'm sure. So you mentioned you were a project leader as well during some years. So you worked on the Olympics 2010 and 2012. So what did that role include?
Well, in 2010, I was the assistant project manager for the Winter Olympic Games in Vancouver. And the project manager, he was also the head of major event, and he was super experienced. He had been working at SVT for 40 years. So I really got a chance to learn from him, who was basically on top of everything. Then I had the opportunity to be the project manager for the London Olympics in 2012. And that work started in 2010. So it was a couple of years ahead. So looking back on my TV years and the TV career, being a project manager for the Olympics, that was among the most fun things that I did in my career. And for 2012, I had the great opportunity to work with a very skilled guy in production and technician. Ade Granberg, he's the CTO for Swedish Television now. And he said, also just let me know what you want to accomplish. What do you want to accomplish as a project manager for the London Olympics? And I said, I want the Swedish people to be able to see what they want, when they want, whenever they want. And of course, today, this is, that's how television or streaming is done. But in 2010, it wasn't done that way. And he said, then I know we're going to do this with a new fiber optic communication transmission. And I said, well, I have no idea what that is. And he said, just trust me. So we did something at the London 2012 using the fiber optic transmission that no one had ever done before. Removing the open bands, we didn't have a master control in London. We used the master control in Stockholm and sending all the signals from London to Stockholm in a whole new operation. So we actually had the world coming to our office in London saying, how are you doing things? So that was the start of a great journey. And today, fiber optic transmission, that's used around the world in many different ways. But that was actually the first time that someone did it in big scale, at least to my knowledge. So that was a great run.
Wow. Another first that you've been a part of.
Yeah, I was part of, but it was his, without his technical knowledge, without his, competence within production, we would not have done it in that way. But as a leader, I trusted him on this. It was really fun to do something that was, sort of paving the way for the future.
So in 2016, you became the head of sport at SVT, first woman to hold this position. How was that like?
Well, of course, extremely proud. And after many years at SVT, I also felt like I was ready. If they had chosen someone else for that position at that time, I think I would have left SVT to go and do something else. So I sort of felt that I could use all the things that I had learned for 20 years at Supersport, Canal Plus, and SVT, and sort of I had a great toolbox, and I could use that toolbox on a bigger scene. So that was a fantastic opportunity for me.
And you stayed in this position for 6 years. So one of the bumps, I would assume, during this time was that the COVID happened in the early 2020 and a lot of, events were canceled. So how was this time as the head of sports?
Everything happened so fast. 1 week we were transmitting a full sporting schedule, and the next week everything was gone. Everything was shut down. We had no more sport to cover. It was only news that we could do. And it was challenging because I had a department with around 90 people. And if you have 90 people and no sport cover, what are we going to do? At the same time, the news department at the SVT, of course, struggled because they were under heavy pressure trying to cover this COVID and how that affected the society. So we raised our hand. I offered the news department people from the sports department. So in a week, we had like 30 staff members working for the news department instead of the sports department. And my boss, she said, can you come up with something on weekdays, on Saturday and Sundays, because we really need to keep the news pace going all week around. And so we just, in like 3 or 4 days, created a new news and current affairs program called the Weekend Studio. And that was launched and broadcasted for months and months, every Saturday and Sunday. So the sports department was in charge of a current affairs program discussing COVID, the society, what was going on. So we could really show that if you're a sports journalist, you have a great toolbox and you can cover other things but sports because you're great at live transmissions. You are very used to meeting people and making interviews in different situations. And I think the sports department got a chance to shine, and they were very, very proud of what they accomplished and how they helped the news department during this time.
Way to make lemonade.
Yeah, really, really.
No, but to, leverage their strengths during this hard time.
Yeah. And I think, everybody in hard times, people want to contribute. But how do you contribute? This was a way for the sports department to really contribute, not only to SVT, but also to society. And the Weekend Studio, it became sort of a television friend for people during the weekdays where they could gather and ask their questions and sort of, calm things down in a way.
Something else that you worked on was to work towards a gender equal coverage of sport. I know that's something that's close to your heart. How do you feel like that is achieved now in Sweden?
We started this journey with trying to make a gender equal sports coverage happen. We started in 2015. Back then, people were sort of laughing at us, both on an international stage, but also in Sweden. I had colleagues from commercial channels saying, hey, what about that gender equal sports coverage you're trying to do? So people were sort of laughing, thinking, that's an unachievable target. And, you will lose audience and people will not enjoy what you're doing. But we showed Sweden at first that people are interested in women's sports. But how do you know that you are interested in something if you have never been given a chance to see it? So when we started to broadcast more women's sports, we started to tell more stories. We got more news since we started to cover the whole sports field, not only men's sports. We started to get rewrites from other media outlets. So it became a buzz, and other TV channels or media outlets, they saw, things are happening in a positive way for SVT. We should sort of join that movement. So I think we started a movement that you could actually see in commercial channels today, because today, for instance, back in, I think it was 2016 or 17, nobody wanted to broadcast the Swedish National League in football, Damallsvenskan. And we raised our hand and said, we can have game of the week. So we did that, and that became a great success with a lot of viewers. And after a few years, the newspaper Aftonbladet said, hey, we want to broadcast that. So we were challenged on that sports right. And after a few years again, Viaplay said, hey, we want that. I think we're proud because we started something that became a snowball, and that has kept on rolling.
So you said you started this in 2015, because the year later we said that you became the head of sport. Was it easier then to implement this type of things? Did you receive some pushback in the beginning?
No, it started, I was working with the Swedish election from 2013 up until early 2015. But I was still part of the sports management at SVT Sport. So I had one foot in sports and one foot in news. I think that was really good for me because I could look at things from the outside, but still be on the inside. So when we were discussing the targets and the objectives for 2015 and someone came up saying, we should move from 20% of our coverage was about women's sport. It should move up to 25. I reacted saying, hey, I can't stand behind that. If someone asks me that, 75% of your coverage is about men's sports and 25 is about women, why do you do that? So we had a discussion in the sports management, and I said, I would like a change. What do you think about this? And it was a great discussion. And after that, we decided that, we're going to move towards a gender equal sports coverage. And I was the one set to lead that task. So that started in 2015. And we had actually no idea where to start. So we just started. And then, of course, it was even easier for me to continue that journey after being head of sports in 2016.
It's really interesting to follow your career journey because, as we have said, a lot of things like connects later on, and you have taken experiences from every part that you have been through and leveraged them in the role to come. So looking back at your career, what are some learnings that you have taken that you use now in the Swedish Olympic Committee?
Well, I think when it comes to leadership, one thing I have learned is I think you need to be clear on things, not blurry, and try to point out the direction and make the whole group move towards that direction. Because then you will have such a power when the team do things together. When you look at a football field, when you look at small kids, they are probably 5-year-old. They have their own football, and you have goals standing around the football pitch, and everybody is scoring in their own goal, and they think, hey, I scored. And that's not how I want to work in an office. I want everyone to know, where are we moving, in what direction, and where do we score? Not everyone having their own ball trying to score in their own goal. So I think that has been important for me to be clear, but also, be courageous, brave, make brave decisions. I mean, of course, it wasn't easy to make a decision saying, we're going to be having a gender equal sports coverage. We could have failed, but you have to be courageous, I think. So that is one thing as well. And perhaps looking in another direction compared to everyone else. So not try to follow in others' footsteps, but, try to walk your own way. So that has been findings on a big level that I have learned, but also I try to implement the golden rule: do to others what you like them to do to you. And then you have to lead by example yourself. So if you want people to work hard, you need to work hard yourself. If you want people to take care of others in the office, you need to take care of them as well. If you want people to laugh, you have to contribute. So I think is a very simple, in a way, philosophy, but it works. Be kind.
Leading from the front.
Yeah, I think it's leading by example. I think that's super, super important. You can't tell others that you got to act like this and then act in a different way yourself. So really lead by example. That's super important.
So also when you grew up, you played volleyball, soccer, basketball, and then later on you also played hockey, floorball. Now you also play some paddle, all of which are team sports.
Yeah.
So what have you learned from team sports with regards to what we just talked about now?
Well, I am a true team player. I firmly believe in the strength of the team. And even if you're an individual athlete, you have a team surrounding you. An individual athlete has a coach. You have someone there day by day supporting and helping you on every step you make. So I don't think that you are strong alone. I think, you are a team, whether you like it or not. So I believe in the power of the team.
And you mentioned you are from Örnsköldsvik, very strong sporting town, especially hockey. Born the same year with Peter Forsberg, the very famous hockey player as well. But outside of sports, what are some interests that you have?
Well, sport is a big interest of mine. And tonight I'm going to play a paddle match myself. At the same time, my oldest daughter, she's playing in the Swedish Hockey League. And at the same time, my youngest daughter, she's playing in a basketball match. So basically, there's a lot of focus on sports. And if I don't play sports or work with sports, I try to watch my daughter do sports. But besides that, I like reading. I like all things. So going to auctions and just hang around with my family, enjoying boat life in the summer, doing water sports. Well, I don't do too much water sports. I drive the boat, and the others, they do water sports. So basically being around family and friends. But really, I really like doing sports myself. I think when I turned 40, I rented a sporting arena, and everyone invited to the party, they played basketball with me. And when I turned 50, I did the same. So everyone had to come to this arena and do different sporting challenges with me. So that's really, sport is really at my heart.
That's great. And of course, sports have so many benefits, not only social, but health and, it's endless.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we really want to show with our Olympic sport. We want to inspire and strengthen Sweden. And we think that our Olympians really can do that and inspire young people to get involved in sports. Because as you said, it has a great health effects. You use your body, but also mentally. If you do sports or you are active, it will help you in school. It will help you concentrate. It will help your mental health. So I think it's so super important that we use the Olympic sport to inspire young kids to really be active.
Agreed. So some final questions before I will let you go. You mentioned you're going to auctions. What were the last thing you bought at an auction?
My husband, he doesn't want me to buy any more things. He says, if you bring home one thing, you need to throw out something else. So nowadays I try to buy smaller things. It could be jewelry or a painting or something, but not too big.
Okay, I see. Career-wise, has there been any bumps on the road? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Well, I think there have been many bumps in the road, but I don't fall too deep in those bumps. I try to overcome them very quickly. And also, I try to turn those bumps into something positive. I think looking back, my biggest bump was in 2009. I applied for the position as head of sports at SVT and became the runner-up. And I was so disappointed. I was upset for like 2 days. And for my family, that's, that has never ever happened before. I usually get upset for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours, and that's it. But I felt like, what can I do? I didn't get the job. What's going to happen with me? But it turned out to be the best thing that happened. The new head of sports, Paring, he put great trust in me. He promoted me to head of online news. He made me the project manager for the Olympics. So he really helped me in so many ways. And I think if I had become head of sports, it had been so challenging for me to also be part of my daughter's lives. So this gave me an opportunity to really have a family life, but do things that I loved at work, sort of develop as a person. I learned a lot around social media, was one of the first to get to know social media and the digital evolution. And I have had so much use of that later in my career. So something that I felt was the worst thing that happened to me turned out to be the best thing.
And I think that's such an important lesson. There are a lot of young people and students listening to this. You will face some bumps, and as you said, maybe you apply for a job and you don't get it, but not to give up and continue to work hard. And 7 years later, you got this position. And as you said, maybe you were more ready at that point to actually take on this challenge.
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't ready. So, they choose the right person back in 2009. But also happy that this new head of sports, that he saw me, gave me, put his trust in me and supported me and really wanted the best for me. So that is also something that I have brought with me myself as a leader, really trying to help people who wants to, pursue a career in something.
That's fantastic. What would be your best advice for maybe women in particular who wants to pursue a career in sports?
Well, I don't know if it's women in particular. I would say, follow your heart and try to pursue a career in something you like. If you do something that you enjoy doing, you will spend more time doing it. And the more work you put in, the better you will become. And along the way, you will hopefully have had fun doing it. So I think that's super important. I don't mean that, if you're good at drawing, that you should become a painter or an artist. That's not what I mean. But, if you have a skill and communicate well with people, how do you use that skill? Can you find a line of business where you can use that skill? So separate a hobby from a real career. I would not have become an athlete. I didn't have the skills to become an Olympian, but I'm leading the Olympic movement in Sweden. So, there's always another path within the same area, sort of. So if you want to do something in sports, there are many career paths. Don't give up if one door closes on you. There will be several others.
Yeah. Who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this podcast?
A person that I'm very interested in is Vanessa Osel-Zuruga. She created the Collective Visibility, and that's a list of women speaking about sport. She wanted to make a positive contribution to women's representation as speakers at sports events or summer summits or conferences, because usually you see, when it comes to sports, almost only men on stage. So she wanted to make a contribution. And today that list consists of over 1,000 names from 100 countries. So I would ask her, why did she do it? And how did she do it? And how has it been received? And what will happen with the list.
It's been a good almost an hour. I told you maybe half an hour, so but it was just too interesting to cut this short. But before we sign off here, is there something that you want to mention that I maybe didn't ask you?
People think of me in a way, like you said, I've been the first doing a lot of things. But I think one of the most important messages, and especially today, is, be kind. That's the most important message right now. Be kind, because we're facing so many challenges in the world. So I think we implemented that also at SVT Sport, to be kind to each other. And that sort of changed the department in many ways. So when you come to the office every morning, you try to be kind. You get a cup of coffee for someone else, you ask them if they want to join for lunch, or just doing, little things for other people that will make a huge difference. So I would like to add that.
I love that. And I think that's a great way to end this interview. So Åsa, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram @sportmpodcast.